Hey guys, and welcome back to another lap guide here on the Coach Dave Academy YouTube channel. My name is Matt Emery. We're here for week 5 at the Le Mans circuit here in the Porsche Cup car. Let's get into the hot lap. So let's get into the hot lap guide then for the Le Mans circuit in the new Porsche Cup car for week 5. So heading down towards turn 1 here. Just notice we're in the middle of the circuit heading down towards turn 1. That's just to shorten the distance slightly down towards this first braking point. Then we're switching back to the left-hand side to the edge of the gravel here. You can see just to open up turn 1, make it a little bit easier for us to come back to the right-hand side for turn 2. And then use all of the curb on the right-hand side. And once you get to about this point here, there's not really too much of a braking reference. But once you're kind of halfway through turn 1, it's when you want to start thinking about braking. Once the car starts to straighten up as well. And then you can notice as we're on the brakes, we're slightly just gradually turning right, just to open up this left-hander for turn 2. So braking, as I said, just about halfway point of turn 1, and then pulling slowly back across this curb on the right-hand side, all the way to the edge of the grass, you can see here, down to second gear, and then using all of the curb as well on the apex of turn 2. The limit is really right at the edge of the gravel. If you do take a little bit too much, you can pick up a slowdown, so just watch out for that, especially in qualifying, and obviously the first couple of laps of the race as well. And then turn 3, same again. Don't want to take too much curb, as you can pick up a nasty slowdown. So this is just about the limit. You want a wheel kind of on the white line on the left-hand side of the car. And then there's another slowdown you can pick up on the exit if you go further than this cone on the left-hand side. So just make sure you're keeping it within the limits here as well. Once you've done a couple of laps of practice, you'll kind of pick up where the limits are, because they're not really too easy to spot. But that's absolutely fine for the first couple of corners. Then we plunge down the hill. Just make sure we're sticking to the right-hand side and sticking to this white line on the right-hand side as well. Your braking reference for this left-hander is the end of this sort of strip of tarmac, or this red cone here right at the end. So you just want to brake kind of in line with that. And then down to third gear, there's a nice bit of camber you can use on the apex as the track kind of falls down towards the apex. So I can pick up the throttle a lot earlier than you think, and the car will stick to the curb really nicely. You can see even before we've got to the curb, we're already back on the throttle. Just monitor the throttle slightly, so we're not quite flat yet. And then once the car's nice and straightened up and settled, we're back full throttle. You don't really want to touch this curb on the right-hand side, as it can throw you off slightly, especially in this car with this suspension how it is at the moment. But still completely flat, and it's quite decent on the exit. It's not too bouncy, and the traction's fine. I know in other cars it can be a bit of a handful on the exit there. And into the right-hander, keep it in fifth gear, take all the curb you can on the inside, and then again, just watch the slowdown on the exit. Slowdown is the edge of the curb, so as long as you've got a tyre on that curb, you're absolutely fine. And then get back on as early as you can as well. And just taking the shortest line at this point, down towards the first chicane. And then you notice we're right in the middle of the circuit. It's slightly quicker in iRacing, just to take the line, just follow this white line basically right down the circuit, and you'll gain about a tenth or two over a couple of straights. And we'll just skip this bit. I think we all know how to drive in a straight line. And then slamming the brakes on, kind of in the middle of the 200 and 100 meter boards. You've also got this arm code that sticks out as well with the Marshall post. So that's a really good reference to use on the left-hand side. About 80% on the brakes, down to third gear, and then down to second gear for the left-hander. Really important to hook your right-hand tyres over this initial curb. Just gives you a bit more bite and a bit more turn in. And same with this one for the left-hander as well. Just notice we've got our left-hand tyre, just hooked over this curb really nicely. And then back on the throttle, obviously got the traction control in this car now as well, which helps with traction. And again, we're just shortening the circuit slightly just by taking a lot of this curb. We've got half our car over it there as well. And then again, just making sure we follow the line down the middle, which is slightly quicker. And we'll skip all this. And again, spotting our braking point, just making sure from the middle of the circuit, we flicked it back to the right-hand side to open up the next chicane. And then braking just before the 100 meter board on the right-hand side, about 125 meters or so before the corner. And then you really want to start turning in at this cone on the right-hand side as well. Down to third gear, again, using all of the curb just to hook our tyres over it, and it'll give us a bit more bite and turn in. Keeping it in third gear for the right-hander, again, using all of that curb that you can. And same for the exit. You can pretty much put your whole car over this curb as well, just to shorten the distance. Let the car run out, don't scrub off too much speed with unnecessary steering lock. And again, following the line down the middle for this section. And then this is one of the trickier braking zones, just as you're slightly turning whilst braking. So it's easy to lock up. You want to brake just before this curb, and you've also got this mud post here on the left-hand side. So this is a good braking reference right here. You've also got a kind of brake in the line there you can use on the left-hand side. Might be a little bit easier to spot from inside the car. And again, not too heavy on the brakes, just to avoid any lockups. It's very easy to miss your braking point here as well and just end up in the gravel. So again, just use your reference points that I mentioned earlier. And you can use all of this curb on the inside. Just make sure you're not clobbering these cones on the inside, as again, you can pick up a slowdown, which will be very costly with the straight that follows. And on the throttle nice and early, once we've apexed. and using all of the exit curve as well, just to get that nice bit of exit speed and launch off the corner. And again, just flicking it to the middle of the circuit, just to make sure we follow these lines down the middle. And then taking the shortest line for this slight kink, and the same for the next one as well. Just taking the shortest line possible. And you want to start thinking about this right-left, which is, again, very tricky as you're turning whilst braking. So you want to start braking just about here with this AstroTurf strip on the left-hand side. And then just trail it all the way in through this section whilst using this curb on the inside. And then just slowly increasing the brake pressure all the way up to this curb on the right-hand side. And then you just want to start releasing it as we get towards the apex. And then by this point here, you're back on the throttle already. Again, with this corner, similar to one of the corners earlier in the first sector of the lap, it's a nice bit of camber you can use. So it turns in quite nicely once you're at this curb. You get on the throttle quite nice and early. So just show you that again. Just starting to brake back here in line with this AstroTurf. Trailing all the way in just to get the car nice and slow down. And then also make sure the nose, you're just getting a little bit of bite with that brake pressure that you're using as well initially. And then using this curb slightly on the right-hand side just to open up the corner, down to second gear, sorry. And then not using too much of the curb on the outside just so we don't get the gravel on exit. I'll just show you what the brake trace looks like in the Delta app, guys. Well, so just initially on the brake pedal, just in line with the AstroTurf on the left-hand side initially. You're just putting on a bit of pressure just to get the car turned in, only up to about 90%. And then once you've gone through that first right-hander, you just let go of the brake initially, just to make sure we're not scrubbing off too much speed. And then once we've got the car nice and straight again, we start thinking about braking up to about 75% or so on the brake. And then as we start turning in, we're letting go of the brake pedal and trailing all the way into the apex. And then once we're there, we're on the throttle again. As I said, you can use a nice bit of camber on the inside, get on the throttle a little bit earlier than you usually would. And then just moderating the throttle up to 100% again. But anyway, putting it back to the left-hand side, down to second gear, using all of this curb on the left-hand side. You really want to be brushing this cone on the left-hand side, just to open up this 90-degree right-hander. Down to second gear, not using too much of the curb on the insides, and then back on the throttle as early as we can. Try and get as close to that wall as possible. You can use a little bit of the AstroTurf as well for good measure. And then back towards the final portion of the lap. Just really taking the shortest line down here, following this dotted white line on the left-hand side. Don't need to worry too much about the middle of the circuit for this part. And this is probably the most famous section. Again, just braking just before the AstroTurf for this bit. You've got this strip here. You're braking just in front of that. And then you're just trailing all the way in here, down to fourth gear initially. Try not to touch any grass. You really want to take a nice curved line in. You don't want to be too narrow, because it's really important to make sure you maintain your minimum speed for these corners. So not too much brake pressure, about 50% peak. And then just trailing in, using all of that curb. There's a little bit of grass you can use here, just as the curb ends, which doesn't really throw you off at all. And it also means you can stay as far right as possible for the next left-hander. And you see we're opening up as much as we can, just flicking slightly right before we turn left, all the way to the edge of the white line. And this one's completely flat over the curb, and a slight lift as we get towards this wall. It's really about how brave you can be and how close you can get to it. You might be able to pick up another tenth or so, just slightly get a bit closer. And then slight bit of braking for this left-hander, again, just using the curb on the inside. This one's all about feathering the throttle as much as you can, and again, just carrying that minimum speed, keeping it as close to the white line as you can as well on the inside. Again, slight bit of brake just to get the nose in, and then just feathering the throttle, following the white line, not really using the curb, just as it makes the corner a little bit more narrow. So you really just want to follow the white line round for this one instead of the curb. And at this point here, you can see the throttle trace. We're just feathering the throttle, just trying to keep the minimum speed up as much as possible through here. You pay attention to this here. And then pulled it back to the right-hand side again, just to open up this left-hander. Just a slight dab of brake again, just to get the nose in. And again, as soon as we feel the car's gripped up, we haven't got too much understeer, back on full throttle. Again, let the car run out nice and wide. Don't really want to go any further than this, as there is a slowdown here you can pick up as well. So this is about the limit. You can go all four wheels just across the white line. And then completely flat into the final couple of chicanes. These are really difficult to get right, especially in this car, especially if you're on a good lap in qualifying. Just want to open it up slightly as we use a pit lane, just use a bit more track on the entry. braking just before the end or the entry to the pit lane. Sorry, you also got this post here you can use on the left-hand side. There's not really too much you can use in terms of a reference. In fact, you might want to use this white line that goes across the track as well. Just after it, you kind of want to brake in the middle of that and the pit entry. Then you hop over this slight bit of curb on the way in. Start braking by now. Down to 4th gear for this first part. And then you want to shift down as we cross this cone here. You can see at the bottom of our picture. Nice bit of brake for the second part. Still in 3rd gear at this point. Again, just make sure these corners you're not cutting too much. The cone is fine to touch, but just don't go any further than that. Or the ones you can go through, kind of. Same here again. Just keeping it in 3rd gear. Then this one's really easy to overshoot. You've got all that momentum you just carried in from the first couple of chicanes. And then you're flicking it back, braking it nice and slowly, down to 2nd gear. These are really horrible in this car because the suspension's so soft. But I mean, this is pretty much as good as you can get it at the moment. That sausage curb as well is an absolute nightmare in this car. So just try and keep this as neat and tidy as you can. You can see we're really bouncing around in the exit. And that'll complete a lap of the Le Mans circuit. So that was the hot lap guide then for the Le Mans circuit here for week 5 in the Porsche Cup car. As usual, hope that was really useful for you guys. You can check out all the latest data packs on coachdaveacademy.com and all the latest hot lap guides on this channel as well. But other than that, I will see you next week for week 6, guys. So take care.